Hi everyone! The question I get asked by far this time of the year, is it too late to plant vegetables in July? A lot of people think because it's midsummer, the growing season is coming to an end in another month or so, that they can't grow new vegetables. Well, today I'm going to share with you what to plant now in July, and no, it's not too late, so that you can have a fresh new wave of vegetables growing in August when your current crop of vegetables is dying out. The key to planting crops in July is to plant quick growing vegetables that go from seed to harvest in about 6 to 8 weeks. So we're not talking the long-term vegetables like tomatoes, peppers, and eggplant. We're talking the quick ones, so you can get your harvest in before the cold weather hits. Now there's a couple different ways you can do that. You can start from seed indoors, or you can start from seed outdoors. So I've done a comparison between the two, and then you can decide which way you want to start. First, let's start with the outdoor setup, and this really, you guys, is the simplest of all, because you don't have to get grow lights set up. So these were started about 2.5 weeks ago. Look at all the growth. I've got beans, squash, some cucumbers, tiny tomatoes, some basil, and a whole bunch of zinnias. Now, the reason why this is so easy is you don't have to get your grow light set up again indoors. These are all warm weather vegetables, so they're growing just fine outside right now. And you know what? When I start pulling things out of the garden that die off because of heat or pests or disease, I have transplants ready to take their place. Now you might be wondering, why didn't you just plant the seeds directly in your garden beds? Well, my garden beds are full right now, so this way I'm growing new transplants that'll be ready as soon as I start to pull things out. Now the second way you can do it, if you don't want to start from seed outdoors like I just showed you, is you can start from seed indoors under grow lights. So these are the vegetables that have been growing inside for about the same amount of time, same exact vegetables, and we're going to see the size difference. So you might live in an area where it's super, super hot and you can't start things outside right now, so this is also a good way to do it. And let me just grab the other veggies so you can see the difference in the size. Here's the tray of veggies that we started outdoors. Here's the one I started indoors. And you can see there is a little bit of a size difference. So there's a couple of advantages to starting indoors. They grow a lot quicker, you're not dealing with heat, with pests and disease. So let me just show you for comparison purposes. This is a white scallop squash that was growing under grow lights. That is a beautiful squash. And here's one that was started outdoors. Now this one's really nice too, but you can tell the one that started indoors is just a little bit bigger. So if you want to get off to a fast start, I'd recommend you start indoors under grow lights. But if you don't want to get all that set up and you just want a really easy setup, then just start your seeds outdoors and grow them outside until you're ready to put them in the garden. So let's just do a quick comparison of the tomatoes, the cucumbers, the chard, and the basil to see which one has grown faster. So we've got our outdoor tray and our indoor tray, and there's really not a huge difference. The tomatoes look about the same. This is indoors, this is outdoors. The outdoor ones are definitely a little bit smaller. There is quite a bit difference in the cucumbers. These are Space Master cucumbers. And the ones that are growing indoors, the leaves are quite a bit bigger. So you definitely get off to a faster start when you start indoors. So the conclusion to my outdoor-indoor experiment is this. If you start indoors, your vegetables will grow faster and be bigger. However, you have to get your grow light set up, and then you have to transition your vegetables from the indoors to the outdoors, which takes a little bit of time. Now, with the outdoor setup, it's quick and easy. You can grow them outdoors, no grow lights involved. The vegetables grow a little bit slower. However, they're already hardened off because they've been growing outside, and I can get some planted in the garden today. So whether you choose to start indoors or outdoors, it doesn't really matter. It's totally your choice. The important thing is that you get your seeds started now. So I'm going to grab my outdoor tray and we're going to get our first vegetable planted, and that is beans. Now beans are a quick growing vegetable. They're perfect to plant outdoors in July. They grow from seed to harvest in about 6 weeks. And the key to making the transition over to your late summer garden is to look for holes in the garden or plants that are dying from heat or disease and need pulled out. So I know I've got some right here that are ready to be pulled out, and we're going to plant some brand new beans in its place. Now I have some beans here in the smart pots that have seen better days, and sometimes it's so much easier to start over with a fresh new plant than to try and make a plant that's reached the end of its life work. So we are going to go ahead and pull these beans out. They've got some spider mite damage and some heat damage. And I'm just gonna clip them here at the bottom, right next to the soil. And we are gonna make room for our brand new beans. Now the beans we're planting today are from the Late Summer Garden seed collection. They're called Dwarf Tailor beans. And they are just a beautiful plant. And the bean is kind of a purple greenish striped plant. So what I'm gonna do first is dig a little hole, add some fresh nutrients to the soil. We're gonna add some worm castings. So you definitely wanna add nutrients every time you plant. That way your new plant has the food it needs to grow and thrive. So I'm gonna add a handful of Vermistera worm castings to the planting hole. Just kind of mix it around a little bit. Then I'm gonna grab my Dwarf Tailor bean transplant. And it's nice to know that I'm starting from a transplant, so I'm gonna be harvesting that much sooner. These will probably be ready to harvest in about a month or so. There's still plenty of warm weather left, plenty of time to plant beans. Look at all the roots on that. I always love seeing the roots. Get my tag in, and I think I have room for another bean plant right next to it. The second quick growing vegetable you can plant in July are cucumbers. Cucumbers go from seed to harvest in about 6 to 8 weeks, and we're gonna plant the Space Master cucumber from the Late Summer Garden seed collection right here in this pot. And again, these cucumbers are not looking so good. They've got some heat damage, they've got some spider mite damage, so we're gonna go ahead and pull these out and start with a fresh new plant so that we can have some beautiful new harvests. So I know you guys, sometimes it's really hard to pull out plants that kind of look good, but you kind of have to weigh your options here and then just decide how you're going to be able to get more production out of your garden. And at this point, with this cucumber, it's to start with a fresh new plant. So the cucumber here is growing in a 5-gallon Cali Kim Smart Pots, which is a perfect size to grow cucumbers. Out with the old and in with the new. So sometimes you just have to weigh your options and decide which way is going to give you the most production. Either try and keep the old plants alive or start with the new. Since I got fresh new plants, that's what I'm choosing to do in this situation. So I'm just going to move the mulch aside, add a handful of worm castings, going to dig a little hole and pop the new seedlings in. So I'm just gonna grab one of these seedlings in here with a spoon and pop it right in the Smart Pots. And you guys, get your seeds started now. It is gonna be worth it in about a month. You're gonna be so glad you did. Look at that fresh new cucumber. Oh, I cannot wait to eat that. Space Master is a nice compact variety. It's perfect for containers, but you can also grow them in your garden beds as well. Nice roots there too. And cucumber is one of those veggies that you can plant every 2 to 3 weeks, so you always have a nice fresh harvest coming along. And again, because I started these a few weeks ago, I have transplants to take the place of the old plants, which saves me time and gets me eating fresh new cucumber sooner. The mulch back in, we'll give them a water and we're good to go. I'm gonna feed my beans with my favorite plant cocktail, Vermistera worm tea. Get your plants off to a good start, gives them good beneficial bacteria, microbes, helps them stay healthy, and then a nice dose of the Good Dirt plant food. And I use this stuff because it works. We'll give the beans a little sprinkle. These beans look so pretty and green. We've got our beans and cucumbers planted. Now come with me down the meandering pathway and I'll share with you the third crop you can plant in July. And that is squash. I've got the perfect place to put it. Now, another thing you want to do besides looking for plants that are diseased and ready to be pulled out is to look for little empty spots or holes in your garden. Now this has been a little hole here for a couple of months that's actually kind of been bugging me. So I'm glad I have some squash transplants ready to fill it out. So today we're going to plant some of the scallop squash from the Late Summer Garden seed collection in this little empty spot. You don't need tons and tons of room for scallop squash. It'll kind of spill over the edge like this one is here. So let me just pull aside the mulch and we'll get this transplant in. Now you can also plant larger varieties such as zucchini or yellow summer squash. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend planting any winter squash because that takes about 90 to 120 days to go from seed to harvest. So that would be squashes like butternut or spaghetti squash. Might be a bit late in the season to plant that. But for scallop squash, it's perfect. It's a smaller variety. It's a bush squash. And it is absolutely beautiful. I'm going to add a handful of worm castings. And I just love the fact that I have a transplant ready to pop in, so I'll be getting harvest that much quicker. I think I'm going to pop in the white scallop squash here. I also have a green variety, but I love the white one. It's just so beautiful, and we love grilling it up on a nice warm summer evening. If you don't know how to start plants from seed in cups or in seed cells, go back and watch the Spring Garden Seed Collection, because those videos will tell you and show you exactly how to do that. And again, these are the ones I started from seed outdoors, so there's no need to transition them and do the hardening off process. They're all ready to be planted. So tamp it down, cover it up, back up with the mulch. I'm going to give it a water. I'm going to feed it with the same plant cocktail. And we're going to have some fresh new scallop squash in about 6 weeks. We've got our beans, we've got our cucumbers, we've got our squash planted. The next quick growing vegetable that you can plant in July are tomatoes. Not full-size tomatoes, but a dwarf tomato, Tiny Tim. Let me show you. I absolutely love the Tiny Tim tomato. It's a dwarf tomato. Isn't it cute? It's only about 2 feet tall. It grows perfect in a 5-gallon container. It goes from seed to harvest in about 60 days. So it's a perfect tomato to plant here in the late summer. Tiny Tim is a determinate tomato, which means that it grows and produces its crop in a set period of time, usually over about a month or so, and then the plant dies. So this plant, it's one of my favorites. It's reaching the end of its life. In fact, it is at the end of its life. So unfortunately, we're going to have to go ahead and take out Tiny Tim, but there's a fresh new one coming in its place. So you can see how the plant is looking pretty brown. Still a few little tomatoes left on it, so we'll save those and bring them in to eat tonight for dinner. We're going to go ahead and clip the plant off at the base. Again, it's a lot easier sometimes to start with fresh new plants. Even though it's hard to take the old out, you're going to be a lot more productive with the new. Now my new little seedlings that I just started are still a little bit small to transplant into this pot, but I do have one that's been growing indoors in the house for a couple of months, and it is ready to be transplanted. So you really want to transplant your tomatoes when they have 2 or 3 sets of true leaves. These ones are just a little bit too small still, so we'll hold on to those for a planting later in the summer. And we're gonna go ahead and put this one in the pot. I'm gonna pull aside the mulch. I'm actually gonna try and pull the roots here so we have room in the pot for the new one. I'm actually gonna go ahead and remove the shredded leaf mulch and add a little layer of fresh new potting mix, so my plants have some new nutrients to get started. Loosen this up a little bit. When you're replanting your containers, you don't have to completely get rid of the old soil. Just add some fresh new mix. We're going to add a couple handfuls of good dirt potting mix to the top. Just kind of mix it in, get those nutrients down in there. I'm going to make a hole in the middle for my new plant. So I'm going to grab my Tiny Tim that's growing here in the 1-gallon Calikim Smart Pot. I'm going to pull it out of here and put it in the 5-gallon. It'll have a lot more room to grow. There's already little tomatoes on this plant. This is going to be good. Actually just going to fold the sides down. That'll be a lot easier than trying to dig it out. Sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get out of the transplanter pots. There we go. Success. Put it right down in the hole. Press it down in there. Just move the soil around the roots. Now Tiny Tim does need a little bit of support. This one's a little bit larger than the ones I usually transplant, but we are going to fit a small tomato cage over Tiny Tim because these things get loaded down. Can you guys see all these little tiny green tomatoes that are on here? And these little guys are also in the late summer garden seed collection. The perfect tomato to plant in the late summer. Of a fresh new wave in August and into the fall. And right now I'm just kind of folding the tomato leaves up into the cage very carefully. If you plant your tomatoes when they're smaller, you won't have this problem. But no worries, it's gonna bounce right back with a good feeding and a little bit of sunshine. Now I'm gonna give Tiny Tim a nice little drink and put the mulch back on. Mulch just helps with water evaporation, helps keep the top of the soil nice and moist so it doesn't dry out in the hot sun, and it brings in the worms like crazy. Can't go wrong with that. The next thing you can plant in your garden in July is chard. Don't forget the greens. Chard are a beautiful, nice leafy green that's so healthy. And I've got a perfect little hole in my garden to plant them right here. Now chard, again, go from seed to harvest in about 6 to 8 weeks or so. They're very easy to plant from seed. Got a little head start with this one. We're just gonna pop them, these little tiny seedlings, in this little hole here in the garden bed. Got some tomatoes growing here and some zinnias, but chard will be beautiful here in the front. So you guys know exactly how to do this by now. We're gonna make a couple little holes here in the soil and just pop our little seedlings right in. Throw in my worm castings. This is the red chard from the late summer garden seed collection. Would you look at those red stems? So beautiful. Now these seedlings were growing outdoors and got just a little bit leggy, but chard is such a hardy plant, heat tolerant and cold tolerant, which means you could be growing it into the winter. So I'm going to plant them just a little bit deeper in the soil so the legginess has some support. The next crop to plant in your garden in July is basil. Basil is one of those herbs you can never have too much around, and I have a lot of basil still growing absolutely beautifully here. And my little tiny basil seedlings aren't quite ready to plant in the garden, but in maybe a month or so, when this basil here starts to die out, these seedlings will be the perfect size to plant. We've got our veggies, our herbs planted here in July. Don't forget the pollinators. Make sure that you plant lots of flowers so the bees and the butterflies keep coming into your garden late in the summer. One of my favorite flowers for that are zinnias. And the lily-put zinnia is a dwarf variety that are perfect to plant now in mid-July. They grow easily from seed. These ones aren't quite ready, but as these little lily-puts start to die off, I'll have brand new transplants to pop in their spot. So now you have 7 ideas for vegetables, herbs, and flowers that you can plant now in July. There's still plenty of time left. So your homework for the week is to go and get one of these planted. Which one are you going to plant? Head over to CallieKimGardenHome.com, grab a late summer garden seed collection and my book. You can save when you buy them with the bundle. And I'm running a sale this weekend, 20% off with the code LATESUMMER. And that sale runs until Monday, July 19th, 2021. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.